Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Wade Watches. I'm Wade, and today I'm finally going to be reviewing The Color Purple, directed by, let's see here, I'm having just a bit of trouble with this fine gentleman's name, and it's an ensemble cast, so I'm definitely going to double check before I say anything. Directed by Blitz Bazawul. I know I'm probably butchering that name. My apologies. And starring Taraji P. Henson, Danielle Brooks, Coleman Domingo, Corey Hawkins, H.E.R., Halle Bailey, Felicia Pearl Mapasi, and Fantasia Barrino. I apologize if I messed up any of those names, which I'm sure I probably did. Not my intention. But anyway, the thing that I was most excited for going into this movie was the fact that I am not familiar with any of the renditions of this story, whether we're talking about the original novel by Alice Walker, the Broadway production, the 1985 film directed by Steven Spielberg and starring Whoopi Goldberg. No prior knowledge of this movie whatsoever, but I do know just from being black, being an African American, that this is one of the most important stories, or at least widely regarded as one of the most important black stories in African American history. So I was excited to find out why. And the first thing to say about this latest rendition of The Color Purple brought to the silver screen is that it's not a remake of the Steven Spielberg movie from which I understand is not based on the Broadway musical. That, and I'm talking about the Steven Spielberg one, so there's no singing in the Spielberg one. Whereas this version that I saw recently is a direct adaptation of the Broadway musical, so there is indeed singing, dancing numbers, and all, and choreography, the whole 9 yards in this version that I just saw, and more on that to come. But I just wanted to clarify that because there's been, just a tiny bit of confusion on that point. This is an adaptation of the Broadway musical. So, with that out of the way, um, first thing to say is that as a story overall, I quite enjoy it. This tells a story which spans a couple of decades in the early 20th century. So it's there's lapses in time. It doesn't just take place in a single year or a couple of years, anything like that. There are time gaps. Um, this tells the story of two black sisters in the South. It opens up in the 1900s and then progresses from there, and it's just a story, like kind of this epic chronicling of these two sisters. It focuses mainly on one in particular. Her name is Celie, where it just deals with her life and mostly her struggles and hardships. She's of course dealing with racism. There's rape. There's incest. There's all sorts of different things. There's themes of like kind of sexuality, all sorts of different struggles and hurdles that she has to navigate in her life. And there are people who come to her aid, people who are against her. Um, there are some themes that not they're not, I wouldn't say they're prevalent, but I notice also some themes, of course, of like sexism, patriarchy, all sorts of different hardships and rough themes, pertaining to black trauma, but also themes of black power, black empowerment, and like nat small subtle hints of black nationalism in there as well. Just a complex movie that explores a myriad of different themes. I cannot stress that enough. There's a lot of different things going on in The Color Purple. It is truly a complex musical. I'm so used to musicals kind of being like, kind of like singular, straightforward, because you gotta, focus more on the big dance numbers and telling a complicated story. But this story, for The Color Purple, the story itself might not keep you guessing or anything like that. No, but there's a lot of heavy themes explored in this one story, all pertaining to blackness and the African American experience. Um, and it's all done really well. Everybody here is acting their ass off. All the cast members that I just named, they really do bring their A game. Um, I would definitely say Taraji P Henson and Fantasia Barrino, who are more or less like the central characters in this movie, kind of steal the spotlight. I also rather enjoyed Coleman Domingo's performance. Halle Bailey too, in the few scenes that she's in. So the two, mostly the two sisters. And also no, because I almost forgot her. I don't want to forget her. What's her name? What's her name? Da, 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 da. Danielle Brooks. She's just one of those. Danielle Brooks is one of those supporting characters that, like, when she's on the screen, it's now her movie. So she was really great too. But everybody across the board is really great in this movie because it's a very emotional film for the reasons that I just mentioned with all of these deep themes. So everybody really does a good job with like portraying that in their acting. That this is a very heavy movie. Um, it's very visually appealing for a movie that takes place in the segregated South. It's not like overly dreary or drab, which kind of makes sense because it is adapted from a musical. But I like the colors, I like the cinematography, I like the dance numbers. And as a guy who is still to this day not super big into Broadway and musicals, and this is one of the most popular Tony Award winning musicals. I like this. I like the songs and music in this. It's a bit of R&B, it's a bit of soul, it's a bit of gospel, all blended into one. And it works. It really does work for me. Um, So yeah, what I'm saying is I quite enjoyed this movie a bit more than I was anticipating. I didn't even really want to go see this too much. I actually saw this with my dad. He's the one who proposed to go and see this. I might have ended up catching it on Max or streaming. I wasn't running out to go and see it in theaters, to be honest, just because, like I said, I'm just not the biggest musical guy in the world. But this ended up being a really moving, complex, and quite an empowering um black movie, and I love seeing stuff like that. I love seeing a movie where black talent does not go to waste, and thank God that this this version of The Color Purple, this rendition of this classic story, didn't suck. There was genuine effort put into, as all the marketing says, retelling this story for a new generation. And as somebody who hasn't been exposed to any other version of this story, haven't read the book, haven't seen the musical, haven't seen the Spielberg movie, I quite thoroughly enjoyed this story. I loved this story. But with all of that said, however, as wonderful as it was to see such an empowering black story that almost even got a tear out of me, um, it's not a perfect movie, but there are no massive flaws. But let me get into what was a bit troublesome. Firstly, the pacing really bothered me in The Color Purple. There are constant time jumps where we jump from one year to the other, and sometimes in the span of seconds, you jump from one year to the other, and that didn't sit right with me. I felt that there should have been more breathing room and more development. This movie is 2.5 hours anyway, so if you had added, one more half hour to that, made it just, this 3 hour long movie, which we're getting a lot more of these days. What what difference would that have made? Because I just felt like the movie could have taken its time between the time jumps and transitions a bit more. It was jarring to one for 1 second to be in like 1929, and then the next second it's 1933. Also the aging makeup really wasn't good here. A lot of the characters, because like I said, this takes place in the span of a couple of decades. A lot of the characters like pretty more or less look the same throughout the whole movie, and that did really bother that did really bother me. I thought that you could have at least put a little gray on them or some wrinkles or something. You guys could have applied more appropriate makeup to them. Why didn't you? Because it's just kind of, it takes me out of it when they look exactly the same as they did in like 1900s, and they look the same, exactly the same in the 1930s. That took me out of it a little bit, but small gripes. But wrapping it up, all that aside, this was still a story that packed a punch. It's shot really well. Very visually stunning, very nice soundtrack, very catchy musical numbers, powerful performances across the board. Can't stress that enough. And it's a very heartfelt and empowering black story. And for that, I'm going to give The Color Purple 2023 a 9 out of 10. Really powerful movie, and literally ended 2023 on a high note. I hope there are more black stories brought to life like this in the future. This has been another edition of Wade Watches, and I will see you all next time. Peace.